County Network and the National Association of Realtors. Thank you all for being here and taking time out of your busy Monday. Before we begin, I would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. TJ, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, TJ. I am Sue Miller, most of you know me, and it is an honor to serve as your MC today. Yay! Hopefully you are here to learn about leadership, friendship, balancing your life, reaching your goals, and expanding your thoughts on diversity, equality, and inclusion. Is that what you're here for?
Yep.
If not, you're in the wrong room. I was often told, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So thank you for coming today and being prepared to learn and expand your craniums. That's what we're all here for today. With that said, I want to jump right into our program and not waste any more time. First up is going to be a power panel of ladies that have certainly shown their skills and earned their stars in all things leadership. And you have so much to learn today. We asked you before you arrived today to submit your questions. What do you want to hear from our power panel? And many of you did, and we appreciate your questions. But before I turn the microphone over to our Vice President and Vice Chair of my Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, TJ Madigan, I want to introduce our distinguished panel to you. And first and foremost, you all need to know that these are my friends. These are women that have mentored me, that have certainly, like I said, earned their stars in leadership and have pushed the ceiling farther and farther and created a zillion cracks in that glass ceiling. So let me start out with Sue Lowe Meyer. Sue has served as the mayor of McHenry for 14 years, from 2003 to 2017. Tough years to be in charge of our city. She earned a Master of Education from National Louis University and a Bachelor of Science in Special Education from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. She taught special education for 33 years. That is a very special human, before she retired in 2005. Honored for her community service in 1995, she was a recipient of the Chamber of Commerce Frank E. Lowe Award, which is one special thing. Thank you. Sue served as the chair of McHenry Fiesta Days Committee from 1985 to 1994. Again, a tough task to lead a city of our size. A third-generation lifelong resident of the city of McHenry, Sue is married to Donald Butch, her husband, whose birthday is today, so she's giving up some time for us. She promised Butch an amazing dinner. Out, she's not cooking. And together they enjoy their retirement, spending time with family and friends. Sue continues to volunteer in our community. Her and Butch are constantly at our food pantry, and they're at every event that we have. So Sue, welcome and thank you very much. Thank you for being here. My next friend is no stranger to most of the people in this room. That would be the Honorable Pam Altoff. Thank you, Pam, for being here. Pam earned her bachelor's degree in education, there's a theme here, at Illinois State University in 1995, and a master's degree in education at Northeastern Illinois in 1978. She also was a special education teacher from 1975 to 1981. During her last year as a teacher, she took on her first public role as assistant administrator with the McHenry Area Chamber of Commerce from 1980 to 1982. She then became a sales and marketing representative at Kepper, Tupper & Company from 82 to 94. She served as the McHenry City Clerk from 1994 to 2001. Again, a tough job when we were changing from small town to big town. until she was elected as the first female City of McHenry mayor. Yay. In 2003, she was appointed to fulfill the term of Illinois State Senator Dick Clem. She was again the first female to occupy this position from the county of McHenry and served until her retirement in September of 2018. But Pam was not done changing the world at that point. She then served as a Republican caucus whip during the 97th General Assembly and as a Republican caucus chair in the 98th and 99th General Assembly. In 2017, Pam announced that she would run for the McHenry County Board and bring her leadership skills back home, as she would not return to Springfield. She resigned early from the Illinois Senate on September 30th, 2018, and after her retirement from the Senate, she registered as a lobbyist. Again, continuing to lead, continuing to give. In 2018, Pam became the executive director of the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois. She has been instrumental in ensuring the cannabis industry's inclusion in defining cannabis legislation and regulation in Illinois. Give a warm welcome to Pam Altoff. And last but not least, a superstar that we all know, my near and dear friend, Miss Sam Powell. What? Real estate is not only a career for Sam, but a lifestyle, threaded together, work and play. A broker with eXp Realty, Sam has 2 decades, she doesn't look that old, of experience in real estate and superior skills to show for it. Her tagline, real answers, real people, real estate, speaks to the culture that she's created with not only her coworkers and her clients, serving all and especially the LGBTQ communities in the city and suburbs. Sam pursued a career in real estate after a friend of hers suggested she join the industry. A 6-time recipient of Chicago Association of Realtors Award for Top Producing Teams, Sam has also been recognized as a top producer for the past 3 years with a previous brokerage and has received several awards for charitable giving from numerous industry organizations. She also gives back by co-hosting weekly workshops to all peers via Zoom, offering assistance with technical issues and education about apps, she's a geek, that are meaningful and have impact on their business. Since 2013, Sam has primarily focused on listings. Her business partner handles the buyer sides and rental clients, but clients feel empowered to work with her because she helps them understand that they are in the driver's seat and she's the facilitator. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Sam Powell. And I have to laugh that when I invited Sam up, I'm like, do you know where Crystal Lake is? And she's like, I'll find my way. And she got here at 10:59 a.m.
Yeah, that's my time.
Yeah, so thank you, Sam. So without further ado, ladies, could you please join me on the stage and get mic'd up? And I'm going to turn the mic over to TJ, and we are going to get ready to rock and roll. So come on up. Oh, yeah.
Give that a second.
Ladies, where would you like to sit?
We gotta set the stage. Please join me up here, ladies. How's that? There you go. Mic check, mic check. Can you hear me in the back? Am I coming in clear? Really won't get anyone else saying this after you. You're my people.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So let's give it up for Sue for being here. So give it up one more time for this awesome panel that definitely carries through this panel. I'll just jump right into it after our. Oops.
Oh, don't mind us, we're just getting prepared mentally.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so I'm just gonna throw these out, and if you feel inspired to answer them, then we'll kind of just go through that, okay? All right, so first question is, what is your story? What sparked you to leave?
You want to go by age?
Oh. I don't think I want to reveal that.
Sure. You go first then. Then you go first, oldest goes first.
All right.
It's been decided.
My story is pretty simple. I was born and raised in McHenry. I stayed in McHenry and am a lifelong resident, going as far away as Whitewater, Wisconsin to college, 50 miles. So I love our town, I love my community, and that's kind of what has pushed me along leadership-wise in town. When I first ran for city council, I ran for alderman at the urging of Pam, who was running for the first time as mayor. And we were of like mind about most things McHenry, and so we thought we would make a good team, and we did. I've always considered myself kind of a reluctant leader. I always seem to get pushed into that leadership role, even though it might not have been the role I was seeking. But I've always loved living in McHenry and raised my daughter there, and she stayed too. So that's kind of my background.
Now that we've heard from the wise.
Now it's the really old.
Yeah.
My story is not that dissimilar from Sue's, quite frankly. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, in a little town called Dalton. I went to Illinois State University, so where Sue says she's from McHenry, I just say I'm an Illinois product. Met a boy, didn't want to live in my area, so I moved up to McHenry. And I will tell you that most of my opportunities were opportunities that were brought to me by other people encouraging me to get involved and me deciding that maybe I had a little bit of gumption to do that. I don't think I ever necessarily would have done it, at least in the beginning, on my own, because that's not how I was raised. I was raised to be a teacher and get married and have babies and live a happy life. It's not what happened. But again, I think it was from the urging and the encouragement of others, and a lot of women, but an awful lot of men as well. So that's my story.
Very nice. I went to college in Rochester, New York, the Rochester Institute of Technology, and my degree is in photography, documentary photography, and historical image restoration of all things, so lots of pixels, which might adhere to the geek side of me. One of my school projects was photographing this documentary story of this woman who was a female boxing coach local to Rochester with her whole mission of keeping kids off the street at nights and therefore in less trouble, right? And give them some guidance and some focus and force them to do their homework and give them other talents that they can pursue and test. So it was that, after I did that project, I was addicted to this woman. Her name's Gloria Peake. She was the first ever African-American boxing coach for the U.S. Olympics, for USA Boxing. In the most recent Olympics, her boxer won the silver medal, was a female. And so it was because of her that I sort of found this passion for giving back in a way. And so for her, what we did, I met a girl in college, and we gifted our time to this boxing club where we had computers donated. We would sit with all the kids and help them do their schoolwork, taught them how to type on the computer, and the best way to do that was these typing games. Remember back in the day, you type J, J, K, K, and the basketball would shoot or whatever? So that was my first taste of what volunteering and being a servant leader could look like in just aiding the lives of others in some meaningful way by some talent that you have. So fast forward, we moved to Chicago in 2000, and I started my real estate license in 2002, and I'm the biggest chicken. Like, the fact that I can sit up here and speak to you today is credit to Women's Council, I kid you not. I was the biggest chicken, had no confidence, for sure thought I would not succeed in real estate because I never did anything after 2 years because I'd get bored. And so it wasn't until 2009, 2010, so like a 7-year gap. Like, I'm just got blinders on, trying to make some money in real estate and see if I'm any good at this craft. And my life business coach at the time had been asked to do a newsletter for our Women's Council Chicago Network. And so I simply joined her on a meeting, at a board meeting, where she was told, hey, here's what your obligation is going to be. And then she broke her back like 2 days later. So I did the first newsletter and many newsletters after that. So my introduction to leadership in Chicago was completely unexpected. I was just there to listen. And yeah, you're just there to listen, and then what you hear very clearly, very quickly, is that there's room for you at the table in this particular case, and that your talents are absolutely warranted and wanted. And so I felt very welcomed early on in that regard.
So almost with all three, it's just you mostly rose to the occasion. You know, it's not like you just woke up one day and said, hey, I want that. You know. So what obstacles did you find on your path as a woman? And I'll also kind of add these other ones. What baggage often comes with being a woman? What challenges do you still face as being a female leader? And how do you overcome them?
All right, I'll start this one. Myself. To all of those. It's never anything else except what I had anticipated people either expected of me, or the lack of confidence and the feeling I didn't have the skill set. Growing up, I always volunteered, but I always volunteered to be the secretary or the treasurer. I never wanted to be the decision maker. Didn't like it. To this day, I always say to other people, where do you want to go? I don't care wherever you want to go. But I think that it's your own, sometimes it's your own perception of who you are and what is expected of you and what it is you can give. And I agree with Sam. I think there's always room at the table. You just have to recognize it. You have to recognize the opportunities and realize the other point is that everybody else in the room pretty much feels the same way you do. So you always be the first person kind of to open your mouth and say, I might step in it, but at least I'm going to start the conversation. And so again, my biggest obstacle that I think I finally have overcome, but I'm almost dead, so is myself.
Very similar. I think, I was in high school in the 60s, and at that time, the boys were in charge. If the girls got a job, it was secretary. And so I think I was kind of reluctantly pushed by other people, but I finally got up enough courage to run for a class office when I was, I think, a sophomore, secretary. And I got home, and my dad was serving on the city council in McHenry at that time. And when I got home, I had won, and he said to me, well, did you vote for yourself? And I said, no. And he looked at me and he said, if you don't think you should win, why would other people think you should? I said, well, they did. They voted for me. And he said, don't ever do that again. If you want a job, go for it. Have enough self-confidence to say, I'm the right person. And so I think I overcame that sort of obstacle pretty young in life just by the example of my dad saying, if you want it, go for it. And sometimes that's easier said than done, but for the most part, I haven't felt like I faced a lot of obstacles.
Gotcha. I was not raised by parents that exuded a lot of confidence or love and hugs to us as kids. So I didn't come up great. I wasn't raised with a lot of confidence. I knew I had talents though. Like I had a really nice portfolio in high school. That was my escape, like anything to stay away from the household. So I was abused by my dad. We sent him to Leavenworth Penitentiary because he was in the military for child molesting. And photography was my escape. Sports were my escape. I suck at math and science to this day. Sam Powell was on the science club and the math league because they loved me and they're like, you're funny as hell. So hang out with us. We'll cheat if we have to, but just get on the bus. So find your tribe, people. Find your tribe. You can be nerdy in some way and still be attracted to other nerdy groups. So it was my portfolio from my high school that actually created an opportunity for me to send myself to college, right? So I got a full ride at Savannah College of Art and Design, amazing art school. Chose not to do that. They don't even let you touch your camera for the first year. That's like suicide waiting to happen over there, for me anyway. So I accepted a half scholarship, 2 years, at the Rochester Institute of Technology and just paid for the other half with loans and stuff, right? Amazing interest rates, we're still paying them off, no shame there. But I feel like one of the things that I learned growing up, just self-teaching how to grow up is, like, we never share enough about our stories with each other at younger ages, right? If I could ask anyone raising our next generations is, get them talking about what's happening in their lives in really meaningful ways by you first sharing yours, right? I think it's really important that we recognize that we're not all alone, right? So early on in Women's Council, my journey in Women's Council, it made sense to me to get in the state of Illinois, to get out there and attend events and meetings across the state, right? You're not going to want to necessarily drive to the city to do a referral. I'm not necessarily going to want to drive to Crystal Lake to do a referral, so let's build relationship. So my wife and I, we're not married, but it just makes things simple. So my wife and I, 29 years next month, I was 18, young face. We would go to the installations, the big parties, the shindigs of all of our 8 local networks, and had a blast. Now imagine early on, me and Jen, this is what, 2010, 11. We're showing up in rooms like this, and yeah, there was resistance. There was eye contact and like a weird sensation. Now, was it me reading the room, or was it me reading the room properly or not properly? But there were weird, interesting conversations that took place. The lesson there, however, is I welcome walking into a room where there's judgment. I just welcome it, because I'm like, listen, I have 30 seconds with you. We can renew for another 30, or I could go pretend I need a drink at the bar. It's not a problem, right? So just create an opportunity for just give me 30 seconds. If we're a good fit and we want to keep talking, awesome. If we don't, no skin off my back. There are many people in this room that I should be networking with and trying to get to know. So it took a little bit of that, being like, they don't know me from Adam, so it's okay. So put a wall up because you don't know me from Adam, just like we do with anyone else. It's not isolated to me, trust me. But I like that. I like us breaking down those walls in these spaces. When someone walks in the room that you're not used to seeing in that room, in that space, how do we embrace them? Because we know the gift that they're bringing to the room by just the sheer fact that they're different.
And I'm going to tack on to that. The question that always inspires me is, if you're an introvert, what do you do when you walk into a room? How is it you meet? I am a terrible introvert, which you would never know because I talk all the time. And so mine is I would look around the room and find that one person that didn't look like me and was also isolated. And you'd go up and you'd say, know anybody here? And start that conversation. And I agree with Sam. If it didn't click, I just go on to the next person who looked like they were standing in a corner or against the wall. And you ultimately become the person that everybody says, but you know all these people. Well, because I went up and introduced myself and shared a story. Why are you here? I'm here for this. I don't know anybody in this room. How did you get here? So I would tell you that it's just one of those, again, it's building up your own confidence and being able to expose yourself and be available for somebody else to.
Yeah. I want to share this one little story about how I started in networking. So I'd be at an event just like this. Like on my calendar it says go to Crystal Lake Women's Council Network event. Okay. And then I'd show up, I'd grab a beverage, I'd sit somewhere, I'd drink the beverage, I'd not talk to anybody, and then I'd go home and I'd be like, all right, check the box, I attended, bring on the referrals. And obviously that was not going to be successful, but you know how hard it is to be that person standing alone, right? So act of kindness, approach those people always and often and first, right? No one should, that's why they have benches for the people that feel lonely and isolated, right? These kids are doing a better job than we are. So why don't we step it up and do a better job with our peers and, companionship in rooms? And hey, you never know, you might meet the most amazing Becky Kirshner in the room, but if you don't go approach them, that opportunity, you're missing out on opportunities yourself by just, being so guarded.
And I appreciate you ladies talking about that, because that was actually another one of our questions that we had from our guests are, how do you overcome the fear of talking to people or approaching people in social settings? Recommendations for introverts. Do you happen to have any?
Being a teacher for 33 years, I was pretty used to talking to people, networking with people, especially in special education. You work with so many different professionals that work with your students, your kids. So I was pretty used to that part of it, so that didn't intimidate me too much. And having grown up in McHenry, when I stepped into the role of first alderman and then mayor, I had lived there for 50 years. I already knew a lot of people. So that wasn't too intimidating. It was when it grew wider to county-wide meetings, and all of a sudden at that point in my life I had to start networking with a whole new group of people. And very similar to Pam, I would just look for people that looked friendly, and if they made eye contact with me, I was right at them, because I didn't have to be the one to, really initiate it, someone else did. So, yeah, it's one of the hardest parts, I think, of any kind of leadership, is that networking part.
I mean, I think going with someone, like early on in your leadership career, is just the buddy system, right? Go with a buddy to the networking event, and you kind of lock arms around the room, and they may know someone, and you may know someone, and you just play this game of, if they know them, they're just like, hey, Sally, I'd like you to meet Sam, and if they don't remember their name, you're just like, hey, this is Sam, and whatever, and then I say, hi, I'm Sam, who are you? Is you work out the choreographed little dance, because anything we can do to curb that building the self-confidence, just because fear is always so ever present, is, that was sort of one of my early tricks. Is I would just be like, I know I'm terrible at names. I happen to know Becky, she's welcome. But I'm really terrible at names. And so, forgiving yourself first, like not walking into a room and being like, well, I can't even read that, I'll pretend it says Erin. Which looks like, instead of pretending I know who they are, I'm just going to be authentic and honest and be like, people will be like, hey, nice to see you again, and I'll be like, hey, nice to meet you, like I met you last week, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. So now I just say, nice to see you, and that's it, right? It's completely all-inclusive.
Oh, and I'm going to go one further. I now look at people and go, I apologize, I don't remember who you are. And then I make a joke of it. But I honestly will say that and just indicate I don't remember. You're dressed differently, you're in a different surrounding, whatever. But I'm real honest about that.
Authenticity for the win. Yeah.
Thank you.
And jokes.
Oh yeah, humor. Humor is everything.
Jokes are the way to go.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so this was a good question. I really like this one because it does pertain to me as well, of how do you balance work, home, and family and marriage with your careers and your passions?
I'll go first on this one because my daughter was already grown and raised when I got involved in local politics. During her growing up years, I volunteered all the time in my community, and I was chairman of McHenry Fiesta Days for 10 years, which was really a huge responsibility. But my kids grew up with Fiesta Days. My kids played Chamber of Commerce. There's something wrong with that.
That's special.
My daughter would run around with a clipboard, But I think what happened was I instilled that volunteerism into my own daughter, and she too has been very active in our community. So I think the balance part was educating my kids and making sure that they understood why I was doing it. I find it so discouraging now that a lot of young people don't seem too willing to get involved in our service organizations and on committees where it's strictly volunteering. And it's such a great opportunity to teach your own kids about quality of life and how you make a community your hometown. So for me, it was my mayor job started much after my daughter was already through college. But I think it's really important to set that example really young and just go from there.
I agree wholeheartedly. But the other part too is you have to learn very early on to set boundaries. I mean, they're good. Trust me, they're good. And they're expected. 2 stories. One, Jack Franks used to always sit and walk in and always lean over and look at the moderator and say, can I talk first because I have to get home and put my boys to bed? Everybody went, oh, how nice. Such a good dad. And he would get up and he would leave. 20 years later, he would say the same thing. Those boys were not home. But again, the point is I think you do have to let people know that your family is important, or your job, if you're volunteering, your job, whatever it is, you have to articulate that and indicate, this is what I'm capable of giving you, this is the time I can give you, But, don't call me Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock when we're sitting down to dinner with my family. So I agree. I think your family has to be part of what you're doing. I think you have to talk about what it is you're doing. But I also think on the flip side, you have to look at people and say, you know what, I just can't do that, or I'm unavailable at that time, and don't feel that they are the priority as opposed to what truly is the priority in your life.
You said 2 stories.
Oh, and the second story is again, just I can't remember.
No, I love you.
I can't remember.
Perfectly normal behavior up here, happens all the time, I assure you.
Absolutely. So that's one story, one really good story.
I was going to add a layer that getting your family involved in what you're doing. So my wife is a licensed real estate broker. Her mom did my buyer side showing schedules up until 2013 when I stopped doing buyers. We've had best friends licensed, come and go through the industry. So getting them involved in a meaningful way so they can see the inner workings makes all the difference. Then you at dinner and the conversation isn't, did you sell a house today, but hey, how was that showing at 123 Maple Street? It just changes it. So I think getting them involved, communicating with them about what's going on in your life, and then, ladies and gentlemen, saying no. Right? The power of no, it's a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to find someone to replace you for the ask that they asked you of. Now, if they ask you to do that, feel free, but don't over-volunteer yourself, because I feel like it's a slippery slope, right? And I'm a product of that, right? So I can speak of it from a welcome to group therapy. I can speak of it because I've been there, as many of us probably have, and just overcommitment, over-volunteering. And so I like to fondly share this story about how I took 2018 off. I called it a Sam-batical because only Sams can take Sam-baticals. But I had to start saying no to things in 2016 because some of our commitments, let's face it, are not like, a couple of meetings. Sometimes they're a couple of years, and sometimes, depending on your path, it could be start now and it's a 15-year trajectory to fulfill this role that you have as a passion for yourself, whatever it might be. So just being realistic to the lifestyle that you like, and setting the boundaries, I think that's really important. And if I can say, not letting your technology control you, right? I'm a big geek, I love tech, I assure you, I own 21 Apple products, Apple to the core. But I have that bad boy on Do Not Disturb 99% of the time. My phone is on Do Not Disturb, so I can be present here. I can be present in front of my computer. I can return calls when I said I was going to return calls. If there's an emergency, they know to text me. My outgoing voicemail says, for the fastest possible response, click right now and text the number you just called. Educating people on how you want to be communicated with and set those boundaries and stick to them, because then they become real. If I call someone's phone, Becky, if I called your phone, would you pick up?
Yeah.
Would you wonder why I was calling you because I never call you? No. But most people will pick up my call because they're like, that kid never calls, must be something going on. And the reality is, it's just because I choose not to let the technology control me.
And that was my second story is, part of us always wants to please, right? I mean, that's a huge, and as women, not to say men don't want to, but as women, we have an expectation. Mine is I knew I had to draw the line when I did get that phone call from one of my cannabis operators on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. It was crucial to him to talk to me at that time, and I thought, what? On a Sunday at 7 a.m.? I'm walking. So that is important.
Sounded like wake and bake to me, but I digress.
Well, the other thing I would add to that is I think it's important to always let the people you're leading know what your priorities are. My philosophy always has been family first, no matter what you're doing or who you're doing it with or whatever. If you have something with your family, to me, that's the most important thing any of us does. So whenever I joined a new group of, whether it was a board of directors or a committee or when I became mayor, I let our employees know at the city right away that that's how I feel, family first. Don't take advantage of me. Don't come every week and say, Joey's sick again and I'm not going to be here. If you're honest with me, I will always listen to you. And I think that it's important as leaders to think about that yourself and establish in your own mind, what is my priority and how does that relate to the rest of the people that I'm going to spend time with? Because I know for me personally, my family is always going to come first, so they have a right to that expectation also.
Yes, nice. So the other thing that I'll encourage you to do is before you say yes to something, like I do this presentation, it's like I forget the title of it now, it's kind of cute, but it's kind of like the power of no, I think might be that official title. And so I will defer to like someone like, hey, would you be interested in joining this, volunteering for whatever, and I'm like, let me run it by my family. Right? And so that alone creates this beautiful pause, tells them you have priorities that you want to check in with to make sure that you're not overstretching yourself. And no one really gives you any lip about it when you take that approach. And so I gift that to you if you're not using it, because I think it's kind of powerful. It just sets the stage for, or just say, I want to think about it, but be really real for yourself and take pause. In that presentation, I'm like, unless you're like a 5-year-old, giddy as heck, going, yes, 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 I must do this, I must say yes to this. If that's your reaction, then I'm like, yeah, go ahead and say yes to it. But if that's not your reaction, then take pause on purpose and evaluate the ask. Learn more about the ask. What kind of time commitment is it? What kind of travel commitment is it? What kind of arrangements are you going to have to make? And then make an informed decision because of the impacts and the dominoes that you know it's going to affect in your life.
Okay, and kind of piggybacking on that, have any of you tried time blocking?
Tried, such a great word. I tried time blocking every day.
Unsuccessful.
I tried time blocking to get here today. I will never quit on time block trying.
Always try, right?
Yeah, I do think that every one of us is wired how we're wired. So if time blocking works for you, oh my gosh, stick to it and be successful. And if that doesn't work for you, maybe playing an album, and when the album ends, I like a LP, and when it ends, you take pause and be like, all right, what did I get done? Okay, what do I gotta get done? Put on an album that's gonna reflect that need to get that done in that time with that energy, and then get it done, right? And whatever works for you is keep trying and dabble in things until you find the one that sticks. Then you'll feel confident and accomplished.
I'd be dancing to the album and not doing what I was supposed to be doing.
And I would also tell you to become the person that gets everybody to drop the phone and focus in on them. Do you have one of those in your life that no matter what happens, their priorities take priority over your priorities?
Like got 2.5 minutes on a text and it's an 87-minute call?
I want to be that person, and I have not yet, at 67, figured out how to do that. But if you can do that, that'd be really good too. Because then everybody jumps to your schedule, and you can time block, right?
That's true. You are in control, people. Not unlike when Sue did the introduction, the customers are in the driver's seat. One of my favorite go-to lines is, I can't make you sign shit. You're so welcome, right? I can't make you pen to paper. I can't make you clickety-click-click. So you are in control. And so gifting them that confidence right out of the gate, game changer on a mindset for them, because they're just like, oh, also scared, deer in the headlights, because what does control look like from their space if I don't know what I don't know, but I'm scared of all of it because I've never bought or sold before. But yeah, keep them calm.
How do you get motivated in the morning?
Nitro cold brew.
I'm a morning person, always have been, and my family can't stand it. No one that has ever lived in my house has been able to stand me in the morning. I've just always been one of those people, when I wake up, I'm like, oh boy, it's a brand new day, and let's go. And not too many people are like that, and it's not a popular thing now. So I have to really try to control myself. I would be the person calling her at 7 a.m. and saying, are you up?
But we would be walking together, so it wouldn't make any difference, right?
So I'm more motivated in the morning. I have a more difficult time motivating myself to go to night meetings and attend night things. I get home, I think, oh, did I really want to go? Yeah. So morning's not a problem, night a bigger problem, and I have to really say to myself, you said you wanted to go, here's the reason you said you wanted to go, now get up and go.
And mine is like what you do. You know, it's always easier to get up and get motivated and get started if you really like what you're doing, right? That's the excitement. I like my life, I like what I'm doing, I like where I am, I like me. It's a good day, I'm gonna get up. So, yeah.
I think it's day to day. I'm not a morning person whatsoever.
I won't call you.
No, you can. It's on Do Not Disturb. Feel free, anytime. Call me 24/7. And I also think that, over your life that could change, right? Depending on the responsibilities and commitments that you're in. As independent contractors, it's an interesting, realm because it's all self-control and discipline. Like, that's the bucket you're tapping into every morning. Like, how motivated am I to get up? So I try to align my tasks and responsibilities in a way that I get to do fun stuff, do stuff that I want to do. And I'm a little bit spoiled right now because we have 2 dogs. And we've been fostering a 3rd dog. We call her the COVID dog because we got her right before COVID from a friend. And she has Cushing's disease, which requires us to chop up a ton of fruits and vegetables and raw meat. And anyone who might follow me on social media, like I love playing in the kitchen. I call it like my tiny test kitchen. So I practice my knife skills by chopping pixies, fruits and vegetables, and breakfast and evening bits. And so we have this great relationship, me and the dog, because although she's impatient with how slow I'm chopping, but I'm like, I'm doing my studies, I'll be right with you. And so I think, just figuring out ways to enjoy responsibilities that you have, right? Figure out a way to add a twist to them that makes them yours, your own, and a level of fun. I'm like a millennial 6-year-old. Wake up in the morning, grab my iPad from next to the bed, put it out in the kitchen, put on, a cooking show or whatever crap I'm watching, binging through, and work on the kitchen. And then it travels with me at my office, and I'll sit at my office. Like I need that noise to concentrate and focus. Anyone else in that group therapy session, group out session? Yeah, we'll meet in the group, call out group later. But I think it's knowing, being okay with your own nuances and not letting someone else, a morning kid's nuances, like rain on your parade of sleeping in. But like just knowing more about yourself and recognizing it so that you can craft your day and your journey successfully.
How do you recommend a realtor grow and approaches leadership development? And I think all of you could give an awesome answer.
Yeah, if you just strip out the realtor word, even just advice is accepted.
I think it's trust your instincts. Communicate, probably the #1 issue I tell people. And by the way, communication is talking, but it's listening, more importantly. I think that would solve the entire world's problems, is if we had honest-to-God discourse and shut up long enough to listen to the other person talk. I really do. So that would be mine, is just, put yourself out there, talk to people, and then again, listen to what their life experiences are so that you can communicate better even the next time you meet them.
I think, developing your own personal skills, your own self-confidence, your own, one of my favorite saying is everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life feeling it's stupid. And I think that is the most important skill for all of us, is to figure out what our strengths are, figure out what makes us feel confident. If we're going to go into a leadership role, we better know why. And so I would think in your kind of work, you're always the leader because you're the person,
Yeah, you're the leader of
leader.
you're running your own ship 100%
right.
of the time.
That's
There's no
right.
doubt about it. I would say get involved in like if we could teach any young realtor in the industry, my advice is get them involved in volunteerism on a local level as quickly as possible, right? So for me, it was, I started 2002. I don't start volunteering really until 2010, 2011. So I missed a good window of time of personal growth, personal development, because I just, was riding with my blinders on, trying to be successful in this way, capturing numbers and getting on some board somewhere because that was going to make me feel good about myself, rather than these other much more important things that are so internal and that only being surrounded by other like-minded, caring, sharing individuals does that get to sort of grow and shine a bit. So getting involved earlier, I think, is really my gift and message. I really would have.
How do you recommend someone at the management level appeal to their superiors to create more diversity at the management/leadership level?
I'm embarrassed to say, why is it even a question?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I'm embarrassed to say that we're having these conversations in 2021. And so the writing's on the wall that stuff has to change, we have to shift, and we have to encourage those of us that are not exactly the same. And it's a lot like tapping each other on the shoulders and being like, would you join me at a meeting? Like my first tap was, join me at this meeting. And, we're responsible for those around us. We all have a circle of people, making sure that they're aware of opportunities and aware of the need and their voice being needed in the room. I think we just got to do a much better job of reaching out to people individually and being like, listen, I thought of you. I was at this meeting on this committee and I thought of you and I thought your talents would be really well served here. Here's a link in case you're interested, no pressure, right? Something as little as that, we can make a big difference with each other.
I think example is the key. I'll tell you a great story. This is my favorite story of the whole 14 years I served as mayor. I always got invited to Montini Catholic School for Catholic Schools Week. Every year they would invite me to come and talk to the kids. And the teacher in me loved to go and do that. So every year I would go. Well, it was always in February. One summer I was at the Jewel and this woman came up to me and she said, "Are you the mayor of McHenry?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I have been hoping I would run into you for so long. I have to tell you this story." She said, "Were you at Montini for Catholic Schools Week?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "My son was in kindergarten," and she said, "He brought that paper home, and he was so excited that the mayor was coming to his school. It went up on the refrigerator every day. He'd go, Monday, this is happening, and Friday, the mayor's coming to my school. Tuesday, this is happening. Friday, the mayor's coming to my school." He was just so looking forward to it. So the week came and went, and he went to school on Friday, and so excited. And he came home, and he didn't say a word. And his mom and dad were in the kitchen, and they were like, "Whoa, what happened?" I thought he was really looking forward to this. And so finally, his mom said, did the mayor come to your school today?" And he said, "No, kindergarten." "No, I think he was busy, so he sent his wife." She said she looked at her husband and said, "This is your fault." Never occurred to him that the mayor was a woman. But you know, it really spoke to something for me. Some things we take for granted, and we don't have those conversations, and we don't talk about diversity or the place that any person can hold in any given situation. It never dawned on him that I was not going to be a man. So, you know, I just have hung on to that for so long because I thought, you know what? Sometimes we assume people know. Yeah. Excuse me, sorry.
Mine's going to go back to the same thing again, communication. I think we have to be respectful and civil to learn other people's stories and backgrounds and history, and not assume we know them, because we don't. In politics, I used to always say to newly elected politicians, go and talk to that person who's sitting in this room talking so passionately about cancer, right? Why? Her dad died of cancer. Find those things out because it changes your entire perspective of how you approach and the words that you use until you can create that safe haven to have very difficult conversations. And we're at a point in our world today that those are extraordinarily important to have. And we have to create that environment for our kids.
What do you see the biggest threat to diversity and inclusion right now in your industry?
I think just that maybe people are going to feel like it's a fad in the respect of, yeah, it's important now, let's do something about it now, and then it sort of fade away and people go back to the norms that they had sort of already been experienced. I think that's what we have to be super careful and critical of, is not to slip backwards. Like we've seen, like I always, sort of say, like before 2020 or even the previous election was, I felt from a humanity perspective, the stories I was seeing, the experiences I was having, I felt like we were moving in this direction, and then it became very clear to me that we had in fact slipped back so far that it was embarrassing to be to be an American, to be in the United States and going through and having these conversations. So until enough of us feel that in that meaningful way, are we going to have real effective change?
I agree with that. Excuse me. I don't really have an industry anymore because I'm retired, but I have a community that I love and that I've tried very hard to set an example for, I guess. I knew I was going to be a special education teacher from the time I was 11 years old. I had a cousin who was mentally impaired, and every time my family gathered, I watched everybody just be so freaked out that Jimmy was there. Nobody wanted to sit by Jimmy. Nobody wanted to talk to Jimmy. Nobody wanted any conversation regarding Jimmy. And he loved that. So he was as bad as he could be because he had everybody just so fired up. But I didn't understand. I remember being 11 years old and looking at my family going, what is the problem? And I guess as I've gone through my career, and I've raised a daughter with a disability, I have come to greatly understand that education is the key. We have got to make people aware. Because for me personally, the direction we need to head is invisibility. We need to not need to have these conversations anymore because there isn't any conversation to have. For me, I have really focused on that my entire life since I was a child. And I feel like we have come farther, but I feel like we have a long way to go. And that is about educating our children. I really think it's better, but we have to keep setting the example. Not just saying what we think we ought to say, but we have to be doing what we think ought to be done.
More importantly, being that example. I agree with you 100%. Talk is this. You have to do what you say you're doing. You have to live it.
And Pam and Sue, I know we kind of touched on it, but do you see tolerance and acceptance of diversity increasing in McHenry County?
I would say on the surface, yes, I do. I think it has a long way to go. I think that that's true just in general across the country. I think that people are more comfortable talking about diversity and accepting, but I think we really, really have a long way to travel yet. We have to be honest about that.
For me, I think that where I see acceptance increasing the most is in our schools. I think that they're doing a great job of educating, but also encouraging that invisibility, that what are we talking about? We don't need to talk about this anymore. Let's just do what we need to do. But interestingly to me, I'm 71 years old, and so if there's a resistant age group, it's probably mine and older. But I listen to my friends, and I listen to the conversations, and I'm happy to say I really think people are beginning to understand that some things just aren't appropriate to say. Some things are appropriate to ask, but find the fine line there and change the conversation to positive. There's no room for negative. Change the conversation to positive.
I just want to piggyback on that because I think that's the message for all of us on a daily is, trying to, the small talk that happens, the negativity talk about someone's behavior, whatever it is, be the one in the room that stops that. Like, be the one that converts it to something amazing about that person, just to shift the energy in the room and the focus of that dialogue, because it's such a slippery slope that we can find ourselves in. And if you try to be in the practice of just more constantly, it's amazing what a change it can make to the impact to the person that is starting that conversation. And you don't have to do anything or say anything to that person. Just shift the conversation and watch the magic. Right? They will naturally, organically change, or they're going to be more toxic, and then I'll just remove myself from that situation, if that makes sense. But also removing all of those other situations from your environment, right? If there are toxic people, maybe remove yourself from those situations and those environments, because you can only talk to your blue in the face so long to someone about your varying opinion to theirs, and then you just got to let it go and figure out, go back to your tribe where the energy is what you need, right? But staying positive, I think, is one of the hardest things for us, because it's an ever-flowing roller coaster throughout the day. Let's just face it, right? You can get a call and now you're Debbie Downer, and you can get another call and then you're ecstatic. So just knowing that and being in it and having a tribe that you can reach out to when you're having a bad day, and them help lift you out of it if you're in a funk. Good. Positive. Try to be as positive as possible.
We used to do referendums, and they used to always coach us. When you get a no, it's a no. Don't try and convince that person at that particular time that it should be a maybe or a yes. Move on and find the person who's much more open to a conversation, who may be a maybe or is a kind of sort of yes. I mean,
you really want that 5-year-old who's like, yes.
That's exactly what you want. And you start there, and then you can work your way up to everybody else. But yeah, don't waste your energy.
Great advice. Okay, so this is more of a management or leadership question. Do you have any advice for a manager to increase diversity awareness in their office? What obstacles would we look out for in creating a more diverse real estate office? And how can a Caucasian manager best support their agents of minority ethnicity?
Well, I think that our calendar, 365-day calendar, is a nice guide to that, right? So let's say National Hispanic Month or a special day, then you feature the Hispanics in your organization, right? Which also means you got to learn about the people within your organization. So how about you really start there? Maybe you survey everyone in your brokerage with short survey questions where you get to learn a little bit more about them, and then you use that to curate. Okay, now what can I do with this information that's meaningful and powerful? And maybe you put on diversity little mini panels in your office during an office meeting where you ask some of these important questions of those in front of you, some important real estate related questions, but get to know them, get to learn about their talents and their niches, and then allow them or create opportunities where they get to be center stage and share that series of talents that they might have. Like just creating an environment where everyone is given a microphone, everyone is given a moment to shine because everyone brings something to the table.
I completely agree with what you just said, and I think, in any leadership role, whether it's within your office or within wherever, you have to lead by example. You have to set the stage. You have to set the climate. If you're comfortable, chances are other people around you are going to be comfortable too. And I think if you are going to be the leader, you better be prepared to do that. You better be prepared to be that open-minded leader who isn't going to give the rest of your coworkers any reason to doubt that that's how you feel. That either you do or you don't. And if you're going to be the leader in this day and age, you better do.
And the only thing I'll add to that is practice your words. Words can be brutal. Know the appropriate words to use, that you are not, throwing gasoline on already a tense or an emotional situation. So don't wait till the last minute to think, ooh, I should have been prepared for that. Prepare for that. Work all of those words or examples into your daily life so you are actually living it every single moment.
When she touched on earlier this power of listening, right? Level 1 listening, where you're already preparing what you want to say. You didn't hear nearly anything they were sharing with you. Level 2 listening, where you actually are starting to really be in tune with the person in front of you. Like you're not thinking about, you're out of your own head finally, and you're actually listening. It's a game changer. When you actually hear your partner, like in our house, we have a rule, it's called pencils down. Because I was a kid back in the day, mechanical pencil, waterproof spiral notebook, taking my notes from voicemails and stuff when I let technology control me. And so the family, Jen's mom, finally one day was just like, pencils down, Sam Powell, so pencils down. So to this day, we still use it. And it really is like, can we be present together? So even like a dinner, and I'll be like, Sam Powell, I come with an asterisk, highest and best by 6 o'clock, so I'll be present until I gotta sneak away and do that part. But setting those examples, I think, is really important. Now I've forgotten where I was going with my statement, so I'm just gonna sit up here and feel silly for a second. Yeah, it happens all the time, because I was level 1 listening to myself upstairs, and the other part of me was like, this is the next thing you're gonna say. So yeah, you're perfectly normal if that happens to you too. But it was just paying attention, and to the male managing broker is level 2 listening at all times. Level 2, level 3 listening. You can't call someone into your office to have a conversation about them and diversity, and the whole time you're prepared with what you want to say, right? You need to open up the possibility and not be attached to the outcome of that conversation to actually have a conversation, right? And really listen to the person on the other side. The biggest takeaway I got at a coaching class I've taken recently, it was years ago now, but we use it all the time, is yes and. Beginning any sentence, like in a meeting with someone, when they share something with you and you simply say yes and then start your statement. So you're never belittling someone with, but that's never going to work. Yes, and have you thought about this obstacle? How would we overcome it? Such a game changer. Some people can handle like abruptness. Like if you're an abrupt kid, then you can handle that coming at you. But not everyone can. So don't be that bag of dicks, for lack of a better term. Don't be that person. Like, be sensitive to the fact that there are human beings around you, and everyone is going to hear the same thing differently, right? So even bag of dicks. Some of you loved it, and some of you are like, what's wrong with that person? And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. It just means don't be a jerk. But I think listening, reflecting, and just your choice of words are really extremely powerful.
And I agree, they teach that in politics too. Always start your response with yes. Not even but, you know, yes,
Never.
however, have you. Yeah, I always yes. So you acknowledge that you've heard what they had to say, and it's important.
That also works with toddlers.
It does. I think that's why women are so good at it.
So our time flew by. So I'm going to ask the last question, and we really appreciate your time and grateful and thankful for all of the awesome stuff that you shared with us. What suggestions could you leave the audience with? And if you had to sum up your professional journey in one word, what would it be?
I'm going to go with exciting. My one word is it's very exciting. And I forget the first question.
Suggestions you could leave with the audience.
Wow, there's really just so many, but it's more about, like, what do you want to work on for yourself next, right? So for me, my wife and I are working on motivation for the morning, ironically, and trying to give ourselves more. We have dogs too, so they get us up, but they're lazy. They're so cute. Is getting up before the dogs. That'd be our new challenge in our household, I think. But I think that just being willing to self-discover what's next for you, right? So where do you want to go and grow? Because they go hand in hand. Wherever you grow, you're going to change. Every day, you're a different version of yourself. I always tease that I put, Sam Powell to bed last night. So now you're getting, what is it, November 1st? We're getting like 11.1 2.0 now from Sam Powell. So if you're upset with me yesterday, you should have had the courage to have that conversation yesterday. Because I put her to bed, she gone. But keep working on yourself, and I start every day with forgiveness. I really do.
I guess for me, my word would be positive. I have been very blessed with making choices that suited me well. And I think that if you find your niche and you find your own happy, you'll have a great experience. I think that you're here today at this luncheon because you already know that. You already know that listening and networking is the way to grow your own career or your own personal life. But for me, find your happy, find what you enjoy, and you'll be successful.
And it's the same message stated maybe a little bit differently, but mine is enjoy what you do. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it anymore. Enjoy it. And then recognize the opportunities that come your way. And don't be afraid to try them. And again, if they don't work, they don't work. Put yourself to bed and wake up the next day and do 2.0.
Your new version.
But I'm serious. Recognize opportunities and have confidence in your own abilities and in yourself to try it. Worst case scenario is you decide you don't like it or it's not working. Oh my goodness.
Trust yourselves.
And then I'll end with this in my commentary is, think back at one point in your own journey where you accomplished something big for yourself, right? And then step back into it and recognize that there was a challenge that happened more than likely for you to come out on the other side a different version of self. Like you grew, but did you grow through some kind of conflict and diversity and something that was challenging? More than likely, yes. And so my advice is, be in those challenging moments. Have those difficult conversations because the light that's on that other side that's creeping under that door, if you're just willing to have the courage, well, they really lower your mics here at the Emmys. You're not is have the courage to be in the mess of it because that's when the growth actually happens, is when it's uncomfortable. Drop the mic, Perry.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for your panel.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
That was amazing. Their words were enlightening, empowering, and world-changing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to move on to lunch, networking, and a little table discussion. So at your tables, everyone should see us. After 25 years in this industry, she still loves every day of what she does. How many of you can still say that 25 years in? Yay! Tracy is a dedicated realtor with a stellar representation and a proven realtor industry leader. She's also a loving wife and a proud mom of a senior in high school, which is probably her hardest job of all. Tracy is the Assistant Branch Vice President of Coldwell Banker Realty, Oak Park, and the 2021 President of Women's Council of Realtors for the entire state of Illinois. She is also, yay, she is also on the 2022 Board of Directors for the National Association of Realtors, the Illinois Realtors, and the Chicago Association of Realtors, which makes her attending a whole lot of meetings and doing a whole lot of decision-making. Additionally, Tracy is a very special person as she is the Federal Political Coordinator for Congressman Danny Davis from the Illinois 7th Congressional District and will be featured in the 2022 Who's Who for Chicago AE Magazine. Please give my friend Tracy a warm welcome.
All right, can you hear me? All right, this is taking me back to my youth, flashbacks, retired singer. That's good. Well, first I want to say thank you. Thank you, Sue, for the invite. Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Jim. Thank you to all the staff at Heartland Realtor Organization for having me here today. A lot goes into planning events. We know all too well, right, Sam? So thank you all for the warm welcome. So there's a rumor. After lunch, the room gets quiet. Everyone gets a little sleepy, we get a little comfortable, and we're like watching our clocks. When is it time to go? So if you will allow me about maybe 30 minutes, then we'll do a little 10-minute Q&A. I want to take some questions from the audience. I think we'll make for a successful afternoon, right? All right, so here goes. 25 years in the business, and I absolutely still love what I do. I think that's now my mantra, right? Anyone who talks to me and they say, well, how long have you been practicing real estate? I always say, 25 years in the business, I still love what I do. I think the panelists earlier today talked about passion. So how many of you look on Facebook and everybody's giving the Facebook great version, the no problems version of real estate? Everybody's taking selfies, everything is great, we're closing deals, we're doing deals and heels, and everything is wonderful. And then sometimes you get those folks who you've sold a house to, they'll email you or they'll text you and say, I think I want to sell a little real estate on the side. You guys make it look so easy. And I say, welcome to the industry and good luck with that. The thing is, you have to have passion. When you have passion, the money will come. The fun will come, the enjoyment will come, the long hours will be long hours, but you'll get up the next day and do it all over again. Would you agree? Yeah. So that's me. But if I could go back 25 years ago and do one thing different, it would be to join a professional real estate organization. That's where I missed the mark. I think, Sam, you mentioned that, like you caught up late. That would have been me. I caught up late. But you know what? We all know that saying, better late than never, right? And that couldn't be any more true for my journey in the real estate industry. So let's talk about a little bit of my history. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, born and raised, to a preacher and a beautiful grandma who is one of my best mentors. One of the things my grandfather instilled in us was hard work, dedication, and protect the family name. So you're going to grow up, you're going to meet people, you're going to do things, but always remember, your name means everything. So protect the family name. So let's go fast forward. How many of you remember the great real estate collapse? Hands show, right? Really a difficult time in history. Well, I've always had a job while I was practicing real estate over this 25-year stretch, up until 2018. Thanks to Matt DeFonis and that beautiful video he did, that's our past president for Illinois Realtors, he let the cat out of the bag. So I was always a practicing broker, an agent at the time, but I also had a job, right, with strategy there, where the job encompassed something dealing with real estate. So I worked for HUD at one point when they decided to automate Golden Feather Realty. Does that name ring a bell to some of you? When they wanted to start and put everything in a system type process instead of that paper system. Imagine that. Imagine that. For a company once called Household Finance, now HSBC, I foreclosed for them quite a few years. And then came this notion of short sales. I started with AmeriQuest, their servicing company, doing short sales before I even knew what a short sale was. But what I found is that kept me involved a little heavily, even though I was just doing transaction, but working the job, I still stayed under the umbrella of real estate. Fast forward, the real estate collapse was approaching, and I saw some things in my journey as a short sale specialist that was looking pretty bad. And as a single mom at the time, I had to make an executive decision for my life that I gotta do something and do it quick because this is gonna get really ugly really fast, and that's what I did. Anybody wanna take a stab at what I did as that dual career person? Anyone?
Singing.
I've always sang, Sam. I became a correctional officer in uniform, carrying a Glock 19 at 26 in California. Who knew, right? I did a total shift in career. So I put my license in holding because things got really bad. And I became this correctional officer. Had no idea, I didn't have folks in my family who went to jail. But I learned that behind the wall, there's this whole type of community that people don't know, right? And the only thing that I said and learned was the difference between that offender and myself, and many of us in the room, is that we didn't get caught. They are people too. However, as a correctional officer doing that job, I still had friends who were being foreclosed on. I still had people who were upside down in the short sale spirit, in the short sale space. And I found myself consulting with friends and family. They would call me and say, Tracy, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And I said, let's do three-way. Let's get on the phone with the bank and let's work it out. Made a lot of people happy. And that still kept me connected to the industry. Well, as you know, banks either went under, banks got bailed out, and things got better. Regulation went forth, and we begin to now hold our industry to a higher standard, right? We all remember that. Changes came. Lenders now have to be licensed. We can't do loans in garages and closets anymore. And that to me was a tale of, you know what, I gotta go back to the industry that I know and love so much. And that's what I did. 2014, I pulled my license out of holding and I said, all right now, Tracy, I've lost some time, I gotta catch up. This industry has been moving really fast. I have been out of the loop. I don't know what to do going forward, but I'm gonna be intentional and I'm gonna be strategic about it this time around. So I jumped back in. And I quickly got into every class I could think of so that I could reacclimate myself on how do we practice real estate in 2014. But also, the sponsoring broker at the time, Ansha Gherkin, who is now the president of the Chicago Association of Realtors, we had this really cool office in the West Loop. And in this office, in the middle common area, there was a bar. So during happy hour, you know, agents would get together and communicate and fellowship over a nice, cool glass of beer. And who was sitting in that audience at that time was this one right here, Sam Powell. That was kind of like my first experience with Sam. Sam had a beer. And I think it was a call-a-thon or something where we were trying to get members to join, and my managing broker at the time said, this might be something you would be good at, interested in, check it out. So I did my research. I showed up at the next event. It was a panel of speakers. I think it was on staging or something industry related. And I said, I can do this. I joined on the spot, and I continued to show up at every event. I got there a little earlier, and I said, hi, I'm Tracy. Can I move a chair? Can I help with the audio-visual? Can I pass out some flyers? And I kept doing that, and as a result, I got to know the leaders. I got to know the industry better. And then what do we get? Voluntold, right? So fast forward, I became the membership committee person. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going. I didn't know why. I just knew I had to do it, and at some point, the rubber would meet the road. Well, as a result of Women's Council, how many Women's Council members are in the room? All right, that's what I'm talking about. So as a result of Women's Council and my affiliation with the council, I grew up in real estate. When I say I grew up in real estate, I truly grew up in real estate. So when we talk about what does Women's Council do, what does it do for your career? I was the wallflower that would come in, spot out the bar, go and get my drink, and I would hover around the room where I would find a place to sit, and I would just observe. And I said, man, I'm watching all these people. This is really cool. We had attorneys, a whole other side of real estate that I didn't even know, right? How many of you just do transaction, and that's how I was wired. All I did was transaction. But when I went to that Women's Council event, I saw other real estate professionals at different phases in their career. We had some newer agents. Any new agents in the room? Awesome. Thank you for being here today. We had seasoned agents. We had agents who were managing brokers. We had folks with 15 years of service, and they didn't want to be a managing broker, but they had a unique skill set. We had attorneys. We had lenders. So I was looking at all these powerful women and men, and I got excited. And I said, you know, this is what I could be part of. As a result of my affiliation with Women's Council, I'm now the state president, as Sue mentioned. The journey has taught me so much. Taught me how to walk into a room and connect with someone and say, hi, my name is, and yours, and why are you here? Learn how to run a board meeting, an effective board meeting, start on time and end on time. I learned how to identify talent. Because sometimes we're in our own heads. We don't think we have the confidence to do anything different, right? Sometimes you need that nudge. You need someone to see that spark in you to say, hey, I think you would be good at this, or hey, I really like the way you handled that. Why don't you come and join me, and let's see what this is all about. So in the spirit of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm going to add another letter, and that's the B. Anybody know what the B is? It's a great word, I promise it's nothing bad. But I then began to learn about, at that time, diversity, equity, inclusion, but belonging. That's the word we leave out often. Okay, yes, we want to make our organizations more diverse. We want people to come to the table and bring their skill sets and bring their perspective, something that I don't know about. And when we talk about diversity, it's not just black or white. It's, if you think about the chart, I'm having a senior moment, I think, the fair housing chart, where we talk about income, and we talk about handicap, and we talk about socioeconomic status. When we talk about all of those differences, that's what diversity is about, right? We come sometimes to the table making a lot of assumptions, but when we want to say diversity, it's just not pigeonholed into color. We have to expand. We have our LGBT community that brings powerful things to the table. So when I seek and think about diversity, I'm thinking about the full spectrum. Equity. You have to give people, after you ask them to come to the table and you want them to participate, you have to give them the tools. And in corporate America, even though it was that, I was still under the umbrella of real estate, it was still corporate. And I experienced being part of the table and having given an assignment and someone not giving me the tools to be successful. And we're talking about a simple system where I get a login and a password 2 months later and the assignment is due in 30 days. I'm talking about the materials that we need depending on the project to get the job done, right? So when we talk about equity, we have to open up the floodgates and say, hey, you're going to need this. You're going to need access to Eventbrite when we're talking volunteer spaces. You're going to need access to Dropbox. You're going to need access to all these things that make things move forward, okay? Inclusion. So I asked you to come to the table. I've given you the tools to be successful, but now I want to hear your feedback. I want you to say something. I want you to talk. I want to hear your input. I want to hear what you have to say. I want your perspective to be added to the table so that we can come up with this beautiful, beautiful thing and know that you put your stamp of approval on it. And so how does the B, belonging, come into play? I asked you to come to the table. I've given you the tools to be successful. I've asked for your opinion. Now I'm going to ask you to stay on board. I want you to lead the charge on this next mission because what you bring to the table definitely counts. Who wouldn't feel like they don't belong if you've covered that entire spectrum, right? So that's what I experienced. That's what someone did for me throughout my leadership journey. So when we ask the question, why did I decide to move further and lead? It just makes sense to pay it forward. I know that there are people in the room right now who's thinking about, hey, I want to be more involved at Heartland. I want to be more involved at my brokerage. I want to be more involved in the community. You have to show up, you have to sign up, and then you have to step up. But for those of us who are already in leadership, you have to take a look around and say, come on and go with me. Did you know this? Did you know that if you chair a committee, it will broaden your entire horizons on what you do as a realtor? Which brings me to this point. After paying it forward, I was then asked to step up and lead. And to make it more personal, my role as a realtor was redefined. I now know what my job is. I don't just open up doors. I open up wealth and opportunity. And I got this by chairing a committee for Illinois Realtors called the Housing Affordability Work Group. In that position, I learned more about HUD than I've ever known before, and what the power of their services. I learned the power of a HUD counseling agency in your community. Their reach, they don't just give grants, but what about our homeowners who get in trouble, right? Moratoriums has been lifted. A lot of landlords are struggling right now, and we could possibly be facing a foreclosure situation in the next couple of months. Well, isn't it kind of cool that I'm a resource, I'm a source of the source, where if my clients that I've sold a house to or I've sold a multi-unit property can come back and say, Tracy, I'm in trouble, I need help. And I say, hold on a minute, I got somebody that can help you out. How powerful is that in your role as a realtor? Okay? So, being redefined, people often ask me, Tracy, why do you do all of this stuff? Well, one, I had to catch up real fast because I'll be 50 in December. But I have a daughter. She's 17. And when I started this journey a few years ago, I said to myself, why am I going to do all this? My daughter is a teenager at that time. She was entering into, the preteen age. And I said, wow, I can't compete with Beyonce. I can't compete with all the fashionable people and all the people in movies and in music that are always like this. Who has teenagers in the room, right? I can't compete with that. I can't write a check and say, go to Spain for a month. That's not me. But what I wanted to do was to show my daughter what real leadership looks like, what courage looks like, what failure looks like, what adversity looks like, what being different looks like, right? And I also wanted to show her, hey, little girl, I hang out with others that's probably just as cool as me, right? And I brought her along. So she attends sometimes some of the real estate events that we go to. She's participated in the Women's Council work groups and checking folks in at the table. And wouldn't you know, this little freshman on the west side of Chicago came to me one day and said, oh yeah, we were in the car driving somewhere. And she goes, yeah, I went on and I'm now the president of the student council. And I stopped the car and I was like, wait a minute, this is a big deal. Like, Bob, why did the real estate community knows her affectionately as the book. Why didn't you tell me? I'm so way over the top. I'm like you. So I get up in the morning and I'm on once I hit the floor. And she's like, it's no big deal, Mom. I see you do this all the time with Women's Council. Somebody is always watching. So that helped me also understand, why am I doing this? Because we have youth that's coming up after us, right? It's about legacy building. It's about bringing somebody along. And who's your best cheerleader? Sometimes your family. So that, in a nutshell, to wrap it up into this nice, pretty bow, is my why. That 17-year-old who bugs me to death and challenges my leadership ability every day. But I have to do the right thing because she's watching. So now, let's take it to obstacles. Here's where the fun begins. Leading is not easy. Are you going to have drama? Yes. Are you going to be in a boardroom where everyone disagrees with your mission? Or are you trying to initiate something that's going to be great and amazing, and you see the vision, and you're trying to mobilize everybody else to see the vision, and you always have that one that's like, I don't want to do it. I don't feel we need to spend the money. It's too expensive. I don't feel courageous enough. You're going to always have that, right? Will things ever go right where you get those yeses in the room and everyone's voted out and we're going to do this whether you like it or not, and we do it and we fail miserably? How many of you have been part of that group? And you're like, oh my God, this is all on me? How many of you have had to resolve a conflict between two people when things are not going right and you're in the middle and maybe one of them is your good pal? How do you stick to the mission and the vision of the organization when others veer off? Because in leadership, People make up things as they want to go, and nobody reads the bylaws. How do you get everybody to read the bylaws and the policy? So we're not just making up stuff off the fly. It's not easy. But you know what I do, and these are some nuggets that you can take away because someone gave them to me and they've been spot on. There's a term that my husband and I use. It's called let it smoke. What does that mean, Tracy? He taught me this too. When we have our disputes, husband and wife stuff. And I'm upset, and he's upset. And I'm like, and I want to talk about it right now. And he's like, nope, we're going to let it smoke. And I said, what does that mean? He goes, we're going to give it 24 hours. We're going to give it 24 hours because right now we're emotional. We're all in the thick of it. Let's go to bed. We're going to wake up fresh, and then we can talk about it. And no matter how resistant I was and how I was like, this guy listen to me. He doesn't want to listen. He just doesn't want to listen right now. Over time, I was like, you know what? That's really true. You got to let it smoke. When you have those challenges, give it 24 hours. Go to bed. Do something different. Walk away. And start fresh tomorrow. That way you have a clean heart, you can see clearly, and you can have a thoughtful discussion and come to some type of reasonable resolution, right? Self-reflection. So, we've created something and we said we're going to do this, and then it fails. How do we feel internally? We feel like a failure, we second-guess ourselves. Then we have imposter syndrome. Well, should I even really be here? Am I qualified? Am I overqualified? We start thinking all kinds of crazy stuff, and then it just piles on, right? I'm getting a laugh, so I'm sure that happened to many of you out in the audience. And then you feel like this epic failure, and then it just spirals, and you just can't bring yourself out of it. Now you're in the rut. Do self-reflection. Not that day, but start today. Start writing down your accomplishments. Start writing down the powerful things that you've done. Start remembering the compliments and the job well done. Write that stuff down someplace where you can look at it and look at it often. So when you have that failure and you're feeling really bad about yourself, you have something that can remind you that you are awesome and you should be here and you can do this. And one failure, well, where did we go wrong and how can we make it better? And let's start it over again. Okay? Another tool that I use is I engage feedback. That's a hard one. Who wants to be told that you suck at something? We naturally, as human beings, we don't like rejection. We don't want to be told. We know we failed, but we don't want anybody telling us we failed, right? That's a hard one. But I guarantee you it's probably the best thing that will happen for you in your next, because you are going to grow up, you're going to learn something new, and how do you get better unless someone tells you that you did it bad the first time? So enlist feedback. I go to trusted colleagues that have done it and they've been successful. I tap into my coach. I go to my grandma, because grandma's going to listen and she's going to say, all right, keep crying, and I'll give you about 5 more minutes to cry. I might cry with you, but after 5 minutes, it's over. Now we got to figure out what we're going to do next and start journaling while you're at it. So I love my grandma because she's always grounded and she can always bring me back to self. Go to bed, take a shower, wake up, and we'll start it all over again. And then here's this saying. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Has anyone heard that saying over your life? So the way I look at that is I say, turn the mountain into a molehill. This big thing that seems like you can't defeat it, it's intimidating, it creates all elements of fear, right? Take that mountain and start making it smaller. And that means breaking it into smaller pieces. This thing, recently, I had to do the FAFSA. I haven't done a FAFSA in forever. I always do the paper version. But now they got this online stuff. I should have called you, Sam. But it was really intimidating because the teachers and the counselors, for those of you who have teenagers that are going off to college, they give you the steps and you got to do this, all this stuff. And I'm like, I got to work in real estate. I got agents, I'm managing another thing to do. This is too much. And I let it start to defeat me and I felt overwhelmed. But then I had to remember, okay, go back to what you know. Let's break it into smaller pieces. Don't worry about her in the application part. Don't even worry about the money that I could possibly get to send her to college. Let's first access the FAFSA. Let's get into it first. Start there. And then once I started there, Then I read what I had to read. I chimed in with the counselor and said, okay, what's next? And before you know it, as of last Saturday, I successfully submitted the FAFSA application. And I began to feel better about the process. But lastly, and this is something that I don't think we do often, because we all have high hopes, high aspirations, we want to do it all and we want to do it big. But celebrate the small wins. For me, submitting that application on last Saturday, that was a small win, but that was a big deal to me. And I celebrated and I talked to her about it and I was all giddy and I was excited. And she's like, you're this excited about, Mom, you could have just called Miss Siegfried. She would have showed you. And I'm like, shut up. I did. It's done. It is done and I feel good about myself. Celebrate the small wins. This was really, really critical last year when we were all in the thick of it, all in it together. And it was hard to get past the noise. But if you got up that day and took a shower and said, I'm going to sit in my living room at this table and I'm going to log into my computer and I'm going to get something done, that's a win. We'll worry about tomorrow. Let's worry about what's going on right now. And I promise you, you will then begin to feel better. So, in conclusion, before we take questions, I'm going to leave you with this. That word you talked about earlier today and how you describe your journey, for me, it is journey. And I got that notion from a really simple book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Anyone ever read The Alchemist? Excellent book. Because it's a small read. You know, we get inundated with podcasts and we got self-help books and we can do that all day. But I opened up this little simple book and it had tons of messages that's coming at me every chapter. But at the end of the book, what I realized was, what my takeaway was, life is really about a journey. We sometimes chart our path and say, I'm going to be here in 2 years, whether it's real estate, whether it's in whatever. I'm going this way, and these are all the things. We're mechanical. We think like that. I got to do this, and I got to check this box. I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I'm going to be here by that time. But then, how many of you know that life happens, right? You're moving. You're on a roll, and you get right there to the next thing, and then something happens. Here comes an unexpected bill that just $7,000 just throws the bottom out. Or you have death, or you have sickness, or you have kids. Life happens. And your chart ends up moving a little bit. It moves this way. And then you pick up and you dust off and you keep going. And then all of a sudden life happens again. And then you're moving this way. But here's where the magic happens. From here to here, I've come to know a lot of people. I've come to meet a lot of different people. I've learned quite a few things, and this is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I've learned some more things about myself. I've picked up a new skill. I've watched a different movie that was really meaningful to me. Someone shared a new idea or a new tool that I could use to advance my business to make me work more efficient. And before you know it, you're here. And you're here, and you say, I am so happy and I am so passionate about what I'm doing right now. And had I not gone through that situation that kept moving my journey here, and here, I wouldn't have never known about this opportunity over here, which is where I'm supposed to be. So, as I close, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to change the world overnight. All you have to do is have the courage to say yes and give it a try. So thank you very much, everyone, for having me. I think we have 2 minutes for some questions. Anybody want to ask?
Who has a question for Tracy? Questions?
I like questions. Maureen!
All right. Maureen, I'll come back.
I got it.
Got
2.
it.
It's a race.
Show off. All day, every day.
Tracy, how long ago did you join Women's Council?
I joined Women's Council in 2014.
Okay. So how long, so you had said that you just like showed up and started showing up to things. And what could you say to the people here who are not members of Women's Council yet and don't know much about it. I mean, obviously you've talked about all your leadership and stuff, but is there one nugget that you could give people in the room that might help them to make a decision about the importance of Women's Council?
Absolutely. Great question. I'm glad you asked that, Maureen. So Women's Council, I'm going to give you the scripted version. We are a network of successful realtors advancing women and a few good men as business leaders in the industry and the communities that we serve. Now that's the scripted version. Women's Council is a boot camp. We are the Navy SEALs, as some would say, of leadership. So when your local association or your state association, or your national association, or even your community leaders are looking for talent, we should always be looking to replace ourselves, first of all, because no position lasts forever. So in knowing that your term is going to end, you should be looking for your replacement. I always tell everyone, give yourself a promotion. It's worth it. But Women's Council will give you the tools, the confidence, will give you what you need to be successful in any role that you decide is going to be your next. It doesn't have to be in real estate. You might want to serve on something at your local community, in your local community. But Women's Council will definitely give you exactly what you need to stand here. I would never have thought 4, 5, 6 years ago that I would stand here without my knees wiggling and speak to an audience like this. And I guess I did okay. You guys laughed and clapped a few times, so not bad. So if you're not involved, or if you're thinking about, like, you don't remember my closing, you don't have to be perfect. You're not gonna know everything overnight. Just say yes, and then watch the magic happen.
But don't say yes to everything all the time.
Through the journey, we'll teach you how to say no.
Who has the next question? Questions? Well, I have one for you, Tracy.
Yeah.
So on your journey of leadership, what was the hardest thing you were asked to do, and how did you do it?
Ooh, the hardest thing that I had to do, I was going to say serving as the chair for the Housing Opportunity Work Group, but now that I think back, Women's Council, when the next incoming leader comes into their role, we have like an installation. So there's the parties that Sam talked about, she and her wife would go to. So I had to, as my term for Chicago, coming into my presidency, plan my party. And anyone who knows Chicago, we kind of have to go big or go home. And watching all the previous leaders before, I was like, oh, I could never do this. Oh my God, this is a lot. So now it's my time and it's on. And I was so nervous. And I was like, I don't know what to do. But then I thought about it. Again, mountain, molehill, break it into smaller pieces, enlist the help of future leaders who have done it. And I said, okay, gotta pick a location. Check. We were at the Waldorf, downtown. I said, I need help. I gotta form a committee. I had about 8 people on the committee. Check. All right, how are we gonna meet? We're all very busy. Do a standing meeting every Tuesday from August to December, 30 minutes. Respect people's time. All right, now give everyone an assignment. Everyone had an assignment. And all we did on those weekly meetings was check in. Check in, what'd you do? What do we need? Where are we at? All that. We marched down from August 2019 to December. And on the day of the event, it was incredible. Those who had tasks that were already done, you should have seen them spring into action on the day of for someone else whose project had to be done that day. Because the entire time, we all knew what everybody was doing. And we had fun. And Sam, you didn't make it to that one.
I was out of town.
You were out of town, I remember that. But at the end of the day, everyone had fun, everyone learned something, there wasn't committee burnout, right? And we put on an amazing event, and I might add, I was able to add some money in the coffers from all the fundraising that I had to do that I didn't know how to do. So that was a huge task, and I think I can get another stream of income as an event planner.
There you go.
Thanks for working on.
Any other questions for Tracy? Anything else? If not, Tracy, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tracy Royal. On behalf of Heartland Realtors, Women's Council of Realtors, Elgin, McHenry area, and of course the National Association of Realtors, we thank you all for being here. We hope that you got a nugget or two about leadership, about life-work balance, about putting it all together, and daring to lead. Thank you all for being here. We'll all be here for a few minutes if you have questions for the panelists. And thank you and have a fabulous